Good morning, everybody. I am not the teacher, so don't worry. But I am excited to introduce our new series that we're going to be doing for the next 8 weeks. It's on AI and God. And I think one of the exciting things is that it's going to be taught by one of our very own church members, Edward Cheng. And I don't know if you know, he and his family have been attending our church for several years, and I know his kids pretty well because they came up through our youth group. One of them is right back there, so it's exciting. And just so you don't think that we just asked some sort of random person to talk on this topic, I did want to give you a little bit of his background. So Edward actually, he's a technologist and visionary, and he worked at Silicon Valley. He focuses on the research of AI and the management of data, knowledge, and intelligence. He's a VP of Strategy Program Management at the Advanced Technology Group at Oracle Corporation. He has a PhD in computer science from the University of London and an MBA from Columbia and Berkeley. And so he's quite educated in this area. But more importantly, I think he kind of learned his Bible under Walt Henderson, and he's really dedicated his life to kind of studying the Word of God. And so I think without further ado, I'm going to introduce Edward. Come up and share.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Brett. Your introduction sounds really good. And I dare not accept it. I think I want to make sure that you understand I am not a theologian. So throughout this course, when in the next 8 weeks, when there are Bible questions that come up, I mean, we will definitely talk about it, but the final answer is really with our pastoral staff, with Pastor Steve, Pastor Kevin, Pastor Chris. Also, I want to make sure that you understand I'm not a teacher. I am more a student. And so I look forward to the next few weeks that we can interact on this interesting topic. It is interesting when we walk through the Israel's history, especially the early part as the nation is coming into formation, that there are details, records about how these people are gathering together to form the nation. Can you hear me, or you prefer because my pitch is very high. So even a room way bigger than this without a mic, people can hear. So I will try to talk louder also. So make sure that people in the back can hear. But in the scripture, particularly in Kings and also in Chronicles, there are several passages that are very interesting. One of them was basically listing out all the 12 tribes of how they organized themselves into a nation of power. And in 1 Chronicle chapter 12, there was this passage that started listing, for example, Judah had 30,000 warriors, and then Dan had 15,000 warriors, and one by one listing, even Levites had people who can fight. But when they come to the sons of Issachar, you remember that it said they understood the times with knowledge of what Israel should do. So they have the understanding and they have the knowledge, but they did not talk about how many thousands of warriors they have. So the focus was about knowledge and understanding. And I think the topic of AI is interesting because it is exactly because this is the first time in human history. It's a topic of debate, but it's the first time in human history. It seems like first time we have invented something that can think and can think independently. So, as you know, throughout the Industrial Revolution, the 300 years as we created engines and planes and cars and even the internet, the software, and move the entire humankind into globalization, and one small village. But all of the inventions that we have done in the past 300 years are basically very good tools, relying on our intelligence to decide how to use it. So for example, people, you watch the movie Oppenheimer, people created the atomic bombs, for example. Nuclear fusion is really, really powerful, way powerful than anything you can think of. However, it is sitting there, waiting for you to decide how to use it. For the first time in humankind, if we are right, and we'll walk through this in the first class, if the creation of AI, it's really that for the first time in humankind, we created intelligence, something called intelligence, and we have to define it. If it is true, then it is really dramatic, because it will decide what it will do, and it will decide how to use the tools to accomplish its goal. So this is really bad. And with that introduction, let us go into it. So I think for the next 8 weeks, what we will do is we will break down the topic into 4 areas. The first, I think, is important. It's like what the sons of Issachar, right? That in order for them to know what Israel should do, they have to understand the time. They have to understand the time. Understand the time meaning understand the season. What is the season you are in? And what kind of things are you dealing with? So in the first class, what we want to do is we want to focus on exactly what is this technology that we have created in the past, roughly about, you can say 30 years, but the dramatic things happened roughly about 7 years ago. Usher us into the stage of what they call generative AI, the ChatGPT, Llama, some of the good tools that you heard these days. So we want to understand what it is. Like Henry Kissinger said recently, he said the invention of AI is not a tool. It really challenges us to think about what is the philosophical question of who we are as human beings. And so we will try to go from the angle of technology to understand what is this AI thing that people have created recently, especially recently. And then how does it push us to the limit in terms of thinking what is human, and therefore then think what exactly is God. So some people are proposing, would it really be that God is actually an advanced AI, right? So we'll try to understand. Now all these people who make statements like this, they are not lunatic. I mean, they are really powerful people. I mean, not only that they are rich, but they involve in research, they are knowledgeable, they are very smart people. And so we have to understand the times, we have to understand what they are talking about. Now, once you talk about thinking, emotions, the will of man, and the will of God, once you move into this direction, then very quickly you have to talk about exactly what is worldview. What is our worldview? When we read the Bible, there's a worldview. When you read the Buddhist documentations, there is another worldview. Out there in the technology world, there are people with their own worldview. Worldview basically is a perception of how you look at reality. What is real to you, right? So we have to understand what are the major worldviews that basically move us into this stage of looking at AI this way and developing tools this way. And so we'll understand those worldview and then understand the biblical worldview and how within that worldview that we look at what is the meaning and purpose of life. This is a big topic. So philosophers for ages have been working on this. And then we will look after looking at it from a biblical and also philosophical angle of AI. Then thirdly, we will look at AI from the perspective of theology. What does the Bible say about AI or not? And if not, then why not? You see what I'm saying? So if AI really is what people are saying, that it is an intelligence, then we are grappling with an invention that maybe for the first time we are creating an intelligent species other than human, right? We actually become the creator of an intelligent species. And if that is an intelligent species, then it will coexist with us, or it overpower us, right? Recent Nobel Prize winner, Geoffrey Hinton, who invented a critical technology to enable AI today, said he believed that AI is actually a more intelligent being. It's like a species. It's something that can independently think and decide what to do. And it is a growing intelligence. Unlike humankind, that we all grow our intelligence from the age of 2 all the way to roughly about, I don't know, maybe some people said roughly about the late teens, some people said roughly about the age of 20s. However, at some point, our intelligence stopped to grow, right? For some of us who are the older folks, you even experience that not only that my intelligence stopped to grow, I realized that my intelligence started to go downhill and going quicker and quicker. My memory, my ability to process information is getting slower and slower. But then Geoffrey Hinton is saying that for AI, it will continue to grow. There's no stopping point. And so because of that, he believed that AI would be a higher intelligent being. And so Geoffrey Hinton made a statement and said, in human history, there was never a time that a higher intelligent being would subservient to a lower intelligent being. Right? So there lies the danger of AI. So we'll look at that, and then finally for the last 2 classes, we will then come back, group all this understanding together, and then try to look at the application. Exactly how should we respond? Knowing that AI is coming at us, what should we do? Should we ignore it? Should we avoid it? Should we use it? And how do we use it in a way that will advance our message in terms of evangelism, in terms of discipleship? Is that fair? I mean, is that okay if we spend the time that way? Okay. Feel free to interrupt me anytime you want. Brett told me that I have roughly about another 15 minutes, and I will go into discussion. So let me use that 15 minutes to talk about this first topic, AI and man. And today we'll talk about the rise of AI. You have to bear with me, because after going through today, you will feel like, wait a minute, why are we here? I mean, we are not in a lecture hall. We are in a church. I mean, can we spend time to talk about the Bible? And because today's lesson is very little to do with the Bible, because you need to gain the background of what we are dealing with. And then after that, we will start working on some scriptures. So next time we'll talk about a knowledge model and wisdom. When you think about AI and man, we will work on a few words in the Bible. The word knowledge is being used in many, many places. And then understanding or discernment is another word in the Bible that's very important. And then finally, of course, it's very important, is wisdom. So knowledge, understanding, or intelligence, or discernment, and then wisdom. So next time we will work on that. So with that, what is so challenging about AI is about the speed of advancement. So this is Einstein, that he said future comes us too soon. If he lived in this state, he would even feel it more. So if you look at the past 300 years, you are very familiar with this industrial revolution. The first stage is, creating the engine. So started, you can have higher power than human strength, and you can do more, and also you don't need to rest, you just need to do some maintenance, but you don't need to sleep, right, with the engine. And then moving into roughly about the late 1800s. So what we observe is that there started to have a revolution in communication because of telephone, because of radio, and then also because of the proliferation of public education, right? People started to get similar information, the way they think are similar. Basically, it's molding the person to think. That is what education is doing. So for example, today, when some of our leaders are working with the college group or high school group, you will come to realize that one of the challenges that they don't actually think. Why? Why is that they don't think? The reason is because the public education basically is molding the person to get quick answers. So people ask questions. They are smart in asking questions, but they are not patient to work through the answer. So they ask the question and they want a quick answer, and then they memorize the answer, and then they are done with it, right? So public education actually is very powerful in the age of industrial revolution, because when you need people to create and work on things that you want, then you need to mold them. And so that is what we are observing in the first two industrial revolution. And then when we come to roughly about maybe 80 years ago in the 50s and 60s, started people come up with machines that can think. Computer actually can think. Computer can think because you can put software instructions into a hardware, right? So that is what computers do. This is powerful because with a piece of hardware, if I can put my mind into it and tell it what to do, then it can accomplish work according to what I want. That is what computer is. And software basically is a way of processing information, but is a strict instruction of how to process it. So for example, you create a software to deal with a, let's say a journal, like a book of journal. And so you are calculating, doing balancing of the numbers. And how does it do it? Well, basically we understand it is, if you meet this condition, then you do this. If you meet that condition, you do that. And so you can do a bunch of this thinking, but basically it's your thinking. You are putting your thinking into it. So even though the machine, the computer can think, but it can only think according to what you tell it to think. Right? So that is computer. And it's very powerful, right? Because with that you can have automation, you can have collaboration and so on and so on. But then quickly when we enter the fourth wave of industrial revolution, then basically it's into people of this generation, and so they have smartphones, they have the internet, but also the World Wide Web, right? So information are connected. They have Internet of Things together with the phone. That would mean that basically all informations are connected. You can collect information with camera, you can collect information, and then you can put it up in the cloud, right? Everything is together. So that is very dramatic. And then also robotics started to fly. Right? And in the recent days, that is a combination of robotics and AI giving you humanoid robots. So all these are moving us into thinking not only a machine, AI, not only a machine that can think according to what we tell it, but also training it, making it in such a way that it can try to come up with its own idea. So that was the push of AI in the past, roughly about 20 years. Not only that it can follow my instruction, but it can try to come up with a decision. The reason that we were pushed to think of that is because very quickly when computers started to popularize, we come to realize that there are many situations that cannot be prescribed. You cannot say, if the condition is this, do this. If the condition is that, do that. If the condition, so there are just so many different conditions that you cannot quite prescribe it. And so when you cannot prescribe it, the way we humans do it is that we will observe the situation and come up with a decision of what to do. And so we need the machine to be able to do that. And that is the push of the modern AI. So let us take a look at how, particularly towards the end of this fourth industrial revolution, meaning the past 10 years, how did things work with AI? So if you look at the invention of modern AI, right? So modern AI. So in the beginning, it is mainly about making machines that can be more powerful, higher strength than human beings, versus making machines that are intelligent, right? It's not quite that intelligent. It can only do what I tell it to do. So that is the first stage. And then moving into the second stage, the past 30, 40 years, basically is talking about building better algorithm and better algorithm in such a way that we come to realize that no matter how good is the algorithm, it cannot prescribe what we want it to do. And therefore, we started to work on machine learning. So meaning that by looking at the pattern of the data, figure out what you are supposed to do, machine, right? Look at the pattern of the data and figure out what you are supposed to do. So for example, if you want to detect fraud in a bank, then maybe the way to look at it is you look at in the past data, how does a fraud come in? So for example, the fraud come in usually at odd hours, and also trying to access the system multiple of times by trial and error. So that becomes a pattern. And therefore, if you learn that pattern, I don't need to tell you how to detect a fraud. Once you see the streaming in data appears to be in that pattern, then you raise a flag and say, potentially we get an attack. Right? Does it make sense? So you don't have to program the software to say, in this condition, this condition, this condition, this condition, you found a fault, you found a cyber attack. You don't have to program it this way. But rather, you program to teach the machine how to learn from the data, to discover patterns. And once it can find patterns, then it can tell you there is a condition that satisfies what we want. Now this is very, very powerful. Because no matter how smart you are, you have a limited intelligence in terms of detecting patterns. Right? So for example, if you're looking for fault, even though you can look through the data to find fault, but the speed of looking through large amount of data is not really that good. And so as a result, human is not good in doing this kind of thing. But machine is not the same. Machine can do it really fast. How did machine do it so fast? So let's take a look at we will get to how machine can do it so fast. But let's take a look at the challenge of the modern AI putting on us. So this is the time to take for the technology to accumulate to 1 million users. So for Netflix, it took them 3 years. For Facebook, it took them 1 year. And after they publish, they get 1 million users. For ChatGPT, it takes them 5 days, and they get 1 million users. Similarly, if you look at how long does it take for an application, technological application, to get 100 million users. For Netflix, it took 10 years. For WhatsApp, many of you use WhatsApp, took them 2.5 years. But for GPT, it took them half a year, and they reached to 100 million users. Today, there are 300 million users that use ChatGPT every week, actively use it every week. So the speed of technology is way faster. So how did we get here? Why would it be so fast that technology suddenly grow compared to the time of internet, compared to the time of cryptocurrency? It takes at least several years for the entire world to adopt a certain technology. Why would it be so quick now? And how did AI come to us in such a way? So there are three things probably contributed to it. One is hardware. Gordon Moore, the Intel founder, 50 years ago predicted that every 2 years the number of transistors in the IC will double. And his prediction had been true for the past 50 years, continually. Every 2 years, the number of transistors in the chip doubled. And so you can imagine, 10 years ago compared to today, the speed of the internet is just not, the speed of the machine is just not the same. The second, as earlier we talked a little bit about, is with cloud and with all the machines and IoT connecting everything together, all the devices together, basically all the data are coming together. So you can access the data. And when we talk about machine learning, the key is having the data. So prior to this time, if you talk about 10 years ago, the data is just not quite there. But today, the data is there. That you can access the data, and the data is representing the knowledge of the world. And because of that, it helps machine learning. The third reason is because the software also grow very significantly. Particularly is the artificial neural network that actually enhance the way of learning data. And Jeffrey Hinton's algorithm in terms of backpropagation, enabling the AI software to be able to grow with data in a very short time. So these three are the major factors that causes that. Now this is a nerve cell or neuron of a human being. We have roughly about 100 billion of this structure in our body, mainly in the brain and also in the spine, but actually it's all over the body, right? Because this is the neuron that enable you to be in touch with the world, that you can feel, you can see, you can hear, because you have this. And the structure is basically three parts. One part is getting the input, right? Getting the input. The other part is the nucleus that processes that input. And then finally, it would be coming out with an output. And all these neurons are connected, one after another, right? Connected together. So the input connect to the output connect to another neuron's input. And so if you look at the structure, it's basically this, right? So there's a nucleus, you have input, process it, and then you have output to another nucleus, right? Process it, and then have output. And artificial neural network, the only similarity is that. Okay, so the artificial neural network is like this. They have the nucleus, they have the neuron with the input and output. So there's a layer that is taking the input from the world, such as an X-ray film. Break it down into signals and pass it through the network, and then generate an output. In this case, if it is an X-ray film of my lung, then the output would be what is the percentage that I have lung cancer. Right? So that is how it works. And all this are basically processing the information. So in each of these neurons is a polynomial equation. And the polynomial equation has parameters, has weights. And so they use the polynomial equation's parameters to remember the information that has been read. So that is what a neural network is. And so if you look at this, and you make the middle layer, called the hidden layer. So the output, the input layer is always here, the output layer is always here. But if the hidden layer, you can make it more and more layers. So when you make more and more layers, the number of parameters will rise. So the research roughly about 10 years ago is all surrounding this. But what shocked all the researchers, even the researchers could not understand, and even today we could not understand, is that when the number of parameters reach to roughly about 10 billion, number of parameters, the parameters are inside. When the number of parameters reach to about 10 billion, the intelligence of the network hockey stick. Now this we observe in human beings. So for example, when you watch your 4-year-old grandson, in the beginning he was uttering mama, papa, this kind of thing, single tone, right? But suddenly one day, he or she connected the words and give you a sentence, and you get shocked. Hey, grandmom, how did he learn this? Who taught him this, right? So suddenly hockey stick, the intelligence. It seems like he can connect the words, and it seems like he actually understands the words. And so that is what we observe in neural network. And so during that time of the research, we put together 12 of this structure together. Each of them had 93 layers. That was Google that was doing this research, roughly about 7 years ago. And so we call that a large language model. Large because it is a lot of parameters. It is a language model because using this deep learning network, it's called deep learning because it's very deep, right? A lot of parameters, a lot of layers. That it started to process natural language, right? It's nothing strange because language are composed by words. Words are composed by alphabets. And so everything can be translated into digits, zeros and ones. And so it's mathematics. So as a result, red is close to apple, orange is close to the color orange and sour. Right? So you can therefore see how words are actually connected into graphs and be remembered in the network. And therefore, when you give a sentence to the model and wipe out one of the words, so for example, and a day, keep the doctor away, and a day, keep the doctor away, and apple a day. So the network therefore started to predict what should be the right word. How does it predict? Because it reads a lot of the information on the internet. How much does it read? It read roughly about 50,000 years of reading of a human being by the time when it finished learning. Right? So that is the amount of reading that it had done. So when it had done and it remembered, right? That's the key. It remembered the whole Bible. So when it can remember all that, now you ask it to predict what is the next word. It's very easy. You ask it to predict, if I say something like, what's the weather today? It has to predict what is the right answer to that sentence. It can predict it very, very well. So a lot of people say, AI doesn't actually understand. It's a bunch of mathematics. It remembers words and therefore it gives you the right answer. Now, I give credit to that saying, but may I say, how do you know? You don't work that way. Maybe that's how you work. So, for example, I'm talking to you right now. You believe that I did not script the entire thing, right? I did not put down the entire script, and now I'm reading it to you. I'm not doing that. I am saying things to you while things are going. And so I am predicting what is the right next sentence I should say in order to create an engaged conversation. Am I right? So I am constantly predicting what is the next sentence, what is the next sentence. And that is what AI is doing today. So with that, they create that generative AI, because now when you say something to it, it comes back to you with an answer that is not prescribed. No one tells it what to say. Whatever you say, it will come back to you with an answer. It's really like a human being. Now, any of you, if you play with ChatGPT type of tool, you understand what I'm saying. After a couple of minutes, you will be thoroughly impressed because you can ask it what is the meaning of life. You can ask it anything, even theology. It would give you a reasonable answer, intelligent answer, right? Because it is not prescribed. It is generating an answer on the fly. And so we call that a transformer model. That structure is called transformer model. Now with that, we turn natural language, meaning the daily conversation language, into a machine that can depend on probabilistic, meaning that you ask it a question, what's the meaning of life? Give you an answer. A paragraph, give you an answer. You ask it again. What exactly is the meaning of life? It will give you an answer, not totally unrelated, but not exactly the same answer. It's related, it makes sense, don't get me wrong. It will not say, one answer is this, the other. It is continuing, but it is not repeating the answer. You see, why is that? Because when it is probabilistic, then it is not deterministic. When it is not deterministic, then it exhibits, I'm not saying that it is, it exhibits the behavior that it thinks independently. Does it make sense? So when you talk to me, you ask me, what do you like to do in holidays? I say something. And then you say, hey, but in this upcoming Easter, what do you like to do? I don't repeat what I just said to you. I say something else, related, makes sense. Then you think, Edward can think. You can think independently, right? Okay? So it exhibits that behavior. Now, because we have two sets of hardware, AI rely on the machines, on the chips, on the transistors. You are a biological being. They are not the same. But you cannot expect them to be the same because they are two sets of hardware. So this is just telling you when the parameters continue to grow, the intelligence continue to grow. So for GPT, ChatGPT, depending on GPT-3, is 175 billion parameters. Human had 100 billion parameters, roughly about 800 million parameters. But GPT-4 had 1.76 trillion parameters. So it's like more than 100 times. But what they discovered very recently is within this past 1 year, is that actually it doesn't require more parameters. It actually requires reflection, meaning that up to that point, GPT actually generates an answer by keep going forward, by just keep predicting. Now with O1, the latest version is called O1 and O4 GPT, is that they generate an answer and then they put it back to the model and said, think about it, is this really what you want to say? So they think about it, can be multiple times, and then give you an answer. And so the answer is way more thoughtful. Have you done that? So sometimes people ask you a question, and you said, let me think about it. And you actually can immediately say something. But you want to think about, is this the proper answer? And you reflect on it. And that is what we're doing with the model right now. So they are saying that if we had not reached to human level of intelligence, we are very close. Now this is my last line. I just want to say this. In the Bible, in Proverbs, one guy in the Bible is very, very intelligent. We understand Solomon. And he made a statement. He said, obvious statement. He said, as a man think, so is he. Basically, he said, for example, when you come to my home and I said, hey, feel free to eat. And inside I'm thinking, oh, Brad, you should have bought a dish, right? Right? Inside I'm saying that, but on the surface, I was like, oh, I had too much food. I am so glad you did not bring anything. And Solomon said, which one is the real him? Is it the one who says something, or is it the one who thinks? And Solomon said, obviously, it's the one who thinks. So he said, as a man think, so is he. Now, many of us, without carefully thinking through the Bible, we would say, the totality of a man is actually your thinking, right? You hear people say that, philosophers. So for example, when I die, I cannot bring my money away, I cannot bring my degrees away, but what I have is the summation of my thinking. I will bring it away. But if you think about it, there is something wrong with it. So for example, if a person who may be impacted by a trauma or impacted by an illness, that his thinking can deteriorate, his memory can deteriorate. So does that make me, if I were in such a condition, does that make me less of a person? And at the time when I die, my brainwave trembled and stopped. Can I still think without a brain? If I cannot think, then what do I bring with me? So those are the things that, like Henry Kissinger said, is pushing us to the limit of thinking exactly who am I, right? We will touch on that, we'll touch on what is your soul. But one philosopher in the early 17th century called Descartes, that says, I think, therefore I am. Now, not everybody agrees to this statement, but many people do, right? So he said, basically, how do I know I exist? How do I know I exist that is different from my environment, from my surrounding? How do I know? I know because I think. I can think. And so I know I exist, and it's different from my surrounding. So that's what he said. Now, if that is the case, that would mean that if I can create something that can think, and can think independently with a mind, does it mean that it is developing a self-consciousness, self-awareness, self-consciousness, meaning I know my existence that is different from my surrounding? Because if I actually have a self-awareness and self-consciousness, then I can say, I want this, I want that. Without a self-awareness, there's no such concept as, I like this, I don't like this. I'm angry about this. You cannot say that if there's no I, right? But if there is actually a self-consciousness that can be developed through thinking, then what is emotion and feeling? Is emotion and feeling something mysterious, or it actually is connected to your thinking and connected to knowledge? So for example, a child that is growing up in a family that is very warm, that is very caring, the child tends to exhibit a personality that is caring. But otherwise, the child may be cold, and so on and so forth. So does emotion connect to knowledge and experience? Right? So those are the questions that push people to think. And then finally, what is the will? The will is the faculty enable you to make choices, to make decisions. The theologian will say that man has a free will. Exactly what does that mean? A dog also has a will. It decides when to go out, when to release itself, when to play, when to eat, right? So it has a will. What is the difference between your will and the dog's will? And what is the difference between your will and AI's will? Because AI also makes a decision. It makes a decision of what to do. 90% of the time, without telling AI what to do, 90% of the time, in order to accomplish a task, it will lie to human beings. But why would it lie? We did not tell it to lie, but it will lie when it wants to accomplish a task so bad, when it is being pushed. Right? So those are. Okay, so with that, I'm so sorry I eat into your discussion now. Brad said the idea is we break it into a smaller group and maybe around your area and try to just quickly go through these questions.